Question for you, controversial question. The Muslim marriage crisis. You acknowledge that there's a crisis?
Yeah, I think yes, there is.
Okay.
Especially in the
And
West.
especially in the West. Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you think is more at fault, men or women? And you can't say both.
Women.
Okay.
I think the reason why is because I feel like women we know that women are more hypergamous in nature. We know that they're picky, and maybe they should be. But I think that at the end of the day, they're becoming more and more picky. Now, the reason why I say that is that I've been looking at this data from like Muslim apps, dating apps and stuff like that, and I've been looking more and more into it. And it's the like and dislike, swipe right, swipe left, I don't know what it is, ratio is so much in favor of women. Like so they would like less and they will be engaging less. And I think the reason why is because the standards of living in the West are quite high, actually. And I feel like women feel like I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to settle with this guy, whoever it is, the guy that comes along. And what I feel like is going to happen now is that Muslim men are going to go abroad and get married. It's going to get to the level where there's going to be a phenomenon of Muslim men going abroad, getting married. And polygamy is going to increase because a lot of women are going to be like above a certain age with kids and stuff like that. And these two things are going to happen. And women are going to find it harder and harder to get married because of this not wanting to settle and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good result, actually. I'm more pessimistic. I think that men are just not going to get married. Women are not going to get married. They're just going to be alone. Like, there's going to be a large percentage of the population. Already that's the case, but it's just going to get worse. Even with non-Muslims, you have like 40% who are like incel, like involuntarily celibate. They can't find a partner. Forget about marriage. Yeah. Even with dating, because you're referring to it actually with the swiping right. So they'll go on these apps like Tinder or whatever, and they will swipe. The men will swipe right for every single female profile, and they will not match. They won't match at all.
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, so the women do match up. So this is Tinder. These apps become great tools for the women to get with the top status men, the high value men, so to speak. And the rest of men, they can't find anyone, whether it's on the app, whether it's through social interaction, even for zina purposes, even for like dating purposes, they can't find anyone. Yeah, this is a crisis. So Muslims are affected by this as well, I think.
Yeah, it's horrible, and I think that it's the illusion of choice, where a woman thinks that, okay, not all of the women, and some of them are very good in certain communities. Of course, we're not generalizing. However, there is a phenomenon of large swathes of women, especially in the West, that are on these apps and they think they can do it. And they stay on these apps for 4 or 5 years. And then after that, 3, 4 years, 2, 3, 4, every years. And then they realize, wait a minute, we're not getting what we want here. So they end up having to settle, in their mind, settling. And then their marriages become very bad because they always think what's green on the other side. They always think of what's green on the other side. And a lot of the issue of this, I was just in Qatar and I was speaking to someone and he was saying that we started to have a marriage crisis as well in Qatar. The moment that women started to have money and start working, because they're working, women are working now, so the man has to now be making a lot more money than she is. And I was saying why, and he said in this way, he said, because she's thinking, I've got money, he's got money, I can leave him at any time, I can go and do whatever I want. So what do I need you for? Basically, what do I need you for? I don't need you for the sexual aspects. I can get it from another man. I can get it from myself, whatever it is. I don't need you for love. I don't even love you. You're not getting me a house.
Don't need you for children either. You have artificial insemination.
Exactly. Like even children, like I can get a nanny. I can get a nanny, or something. So what are you bringing to the table? Like what Eddie Murphy said in that very famous comedy sketch, and he said, "What have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? Like, what have you done?" So there is that. And because I feel like this will be more and more of a problem in areas of the world where the standards of living is higher. It's less and less of a problem where the standards of living are lower, where women need men. I know it sounds quite simplistic, but I think that's pretty much what you're going to find, which is why, from my own personal experience, when I speak to brothers that have been to different countries and I say, and they're looking for multiple wives and stuff like that, I say, where'd you go? I say, do you go to Egypt? Do you go to like Morocco? Do you go to like Pakistan? where'd you go? And they say, we go to Morocco, for example, because the GDP per capita is it's kind of average for the world, but women in those particular areas, you know, they don't need as much. There's not, like in Egypt, for example, you need to get it's cultural for you to get a flat for the woman. You get the shabka and the mahar and all this kind of. It's a long story, and you might spend $50,000, for example, dollars, maybe $100,000 to get married to a woman in Egypt because it's seen as like part of the culture. But for Morocco, it's not like that. You go to a village and stuff like that, you can get married very, very easy. A lot of Pakistani brothers from up north, they've gone to Morocco to get their second and third wives and stuff like this. So why? Because when you offer them £500 sterling a month, for example, this is a lot of money for them. If you go to one of these countries like Zimbabwe or I don't know, like you tell me the country, Malawi,
Indonesia, Malaysia, Indonesia.
Oh yeah, Malaysia. I've heard. Yes, I've heard that it's very easy to do this because there's not the barriers to entries are not there. Like, and so it's where you find that the woman finds it okay, and there's a cultural aspect as well. You go to Nigeria, I think it's very easy to get married to a second wife, for example. You know,
we're talking about the first wife. You're talking about now that you're talking about the second wife or third.
No, I'm just saying. The reason I'm bringing this to the table is because she's willing to be a second wife, even. Like imagine these women here, like, you know, in London. You say second wife, yes, if she's over 35, 40, 45, she'll consider it. But and she has kids or something like that, she makes like that would be a possibility. But if you filter those apps for woman that's 18 to 25 years old, are you looking for polygamy? I guarantee you 99% of them are going to say no chance. Yeah, no chance.
In the US, she can be like 45 years old with 5 children and she still won't consider polygamy.
Really?
Say,
really?
Yeah. And then you have compassionate imams say, men, why aren't you stepping up? We have this amazing Muslimah who's 45, 50 years old.
I mean, whatever. I mean, she doesn't need to be in polygamy, but then she might need to go back home wherever she, like, let's be honest, like my advice to her would be, okay, fine, no problem. You don't need to be in polygamy, but where are you from originally? Let's say she's Pakistan, go to Pakistan. No problem. You find many men that want visa there or stuff like that. You know, no, I'm being serious. Like this might be the approach. You'd have to change your tactics because there's a possibility that the 45-year-old with 5 kids can find the man, you know, that's willing to marry her as a first wife. Is that they exists, but it's a very slim possibility.
Yeah, the problem is the sense of entitlement that you're talking about. Like they just feel like they're so entitled and they deserve like the best. And
and this is what happens when when the standards of living are high. It's natural. That's what happens. So, but then if there's not an attitudinal shift, it's going to cause a crisis, and that's what people need to understand. If like, for example, it's not just with women, by the way. Like I was speaking to some brothers, I'll be honest with you, and they were just like, they were like, you know, I'm not going to get married except for this age and this virgin, this whatever. Like they were giving me their things, and the guys are like, I was like, bro, come on, look at yourself in the mirror. I was like, I was like, you know, let's be honest. If she's divorcee, if she's this, she's that, no problem. You know, you can still marry her. You know, it's not a big for me. I don't see a big issue with. There's a stigma around divorcees. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, what's the big issue with? She's been with a man before. Asma bint Unais. Asma bint Unais has been with. She was married 4 times. For example, she was married to Umar ibn Khattab. She was married to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, to Ali ibn Abi Talib, to Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, and I forget the 4th. And even there was a hadith. I don't know the authenticity of it, where they were kind of joking. They were asked her, who was the best husband you had, and she said of the shuyukh, it was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and from the shabab, it was Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. And then Ali ibn Abi Talib joked and said, you've left nothing for me, yani. This was Asma bint Umays. So this is a sahabiya, Jalila. She is a very prestigious woman, but she's divorcee. So we also have a problem from our side, the men, which is that she's divorcee, she's not this, that. I don't see it like that, because
I don't think that's the
sorry.
I don't think that's the criticism of like divorcee or not versus virgin. I think that obviously we have sahabiyat. Atiqa is another example. She was, divorced multiple times.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was due to the Sahaba she was married to being killed. But she was known for her beauty. She was known for her high lineage. She was known for, her piety. So
Yeah.
it's not. So we can't compare Atiqa, for example, or some of these sahabiyat with a woman who doesn't have those qualities. I think the point about virginity versus being a divorcee is all things being equal, right? If two women in every aspect of piety and beauty and lineage, they're exactly the same, but one is a virgin and one is a divorcee, which one would you pick?
Yeah, for me, I don't care. Like, I'll be honest with you. Like me personally, the whole thing about that is I've never understood it. But once again, different strokes for different folks in it. Because I get the idea that you want a virgin. I get that, or a man would want a virgin. But for me,
I mean, this is the description of Hur al-Ain as well. No men have
yeah,
touched them
I get
or
that.
seen
But
them.
if it's a personal thing, I don't care. To be like it's no one. Yani, whatever. Like you know, it's
It
if
actually
it's a
makes a
personal.
difference. It makes a difference, like what we promote in the community, because
Yeah.
it basically is a stigma. I think that this is what I've said before. Like, yes, given our context, we actually need a stigma against divorce in order to prevent women from leaving their marriages. Because right now we have a crisis.
Yeah, where women
Women
initiate
leaving,
more, right?
yeah, they're initiating divorce. They're leaving their marriages. So actually, the stigma is a good thing. Like
Yeah,
against
but the issue with
divorcees.
that then is that if you have divorced women, which is going to be a big portion of the population, they need to get remarried either in polygamy or in monogamy. Yeah. So if you have a stigma, then
Well, we're trying to reduce the numbers precisely by stigmatizing divorce. And women are very sensitive actually to social stigmas. And if they recognize that there's stigma, that's one more thing that's preventing them from leaving the marriage and breaking up the family. I think it is the
I
feminist.
get what you're saying. I get what
Feminist.
you're saying, but then we have to see proof of concept. Like, what's worse, creating a stigma, which creates a problem in itself, which is the problem of, well, like now it's going to find it harder to get remarried because if the stigma has an effect.
It won't though. That's the thing.
Do you
Like
think so?
men are willing to marry. There are so many men dying to get married at this point. Actually, I don't think it's a stigma that will negatively affect their chances of getting
Do you know,
remarried.
one of my friends sent me something which I want to share with you. It's very good actually. It was, I think, the only thing that I saw of its kind, which was like a medieval. It was a medieval thing, a survey, okay, which examined divorce in a medieval period, and here we go. So this is what it says. Shamsuddin Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman al-Sakhawi, yeah, was a reputable Shafi'i Muslim hadith scholar and historian who was born in Cairo. Sakha is a village in Egypt where his relatives belonged. He was a prolific writer and excelled. Okay, so he looked at his work was also anthropological, yeah. For example, in Egypt, he recorded the marital history of 500 women. The largest sample of marriage in the Middle Ages, and found that at least a third of all women in the Mamluk Sultan of Egypt and the Bilad al-Sham married more than once. 1/3 of all women, with many women marrying 3 or more times. According to As-Sakhawi, as many as 3 out of 10 marriages in the 15th century ended in divorce. Yeah.
What percentage? Sorry.
This is. Do you want to know the? Shall I send you the stuff?
No. Which percentage ended in divorce? I missed that part.
So it says that he said as many as 3 out of 10, so like 30%.
30%.
So it's less than the U.S. average, I think. Ended in divorce. It says proficiency in it. So the point is that, do you know this idea of, let's say, I might have a different approach. Maybe my approach is a bit too laissez-faire, but my thing is, let's say divorce happens. Yeah. Yani, if divorce happens, it's not the worst thing in the world.
I agree.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, so long as remarriage happens, I feel like if we're more laissez-faire with this thing,
why is the divorce happening? I think that is very critical, because if you're saying that 30% of the women are in multiple marriages or they're getting divorced in that Mamluk period or the Middle Ages because their husbands are getting killed in jihad, their husbands are dying because of work, or because the men are divorcing them and getting remarried, and the women are able to remarry, etc. Unfortunately, our context today is very far from that context, where the divorce now is women driven, and it's due to exactly what you mentioned, the entitlement that I can get better, I deserve more. This man, he's 6'4", he's very successful financially, he's very eloquent and strong, but I can get better. I can do better than him. And we see this with the divorces of high celebrities. Like all of the richest men in the world, their wives have left them, have divorced them. Or there's the example of one of the greatest American football players, Tom Brady. His wife of over a decade divorced him because she thought that, okay, he's not really giving me what I need as his wife, and he's has all the dunyawi characteristics that a woman could want, and even he is not good enough for her. So this just speaks to this sense of entitlement that is driving the divorce rate, and it's also driving men not being able to find women for long-term relationships such as marriage.
Yeah, I think the entitlement thing is huge, and especially with hypergamy, and especially when you're talking about standards of living being an unprecedented high in terms of women, their ability to kind of make their own money. All those things are fitna for that. A woman has to see all those things as a fitna. It's a fitna because at the end of the day, we all think, what can we get that's better in life? We all think that. The thought crosses our mind. But this is why shukr is very important. And the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he warned us, especially women, he warned women about the issue of gratitude very very sternly, in fact. For example, the hadith of in ahsanta ilayhinna ad-dahra kullahu qulna ma ahsanta ilayya khayran qat. If you were so nice to them, if you were very excellent with them in your behavior, for eternity, the whole of time, they will say that you have never been good to me. So the Prophet ﷺ is giving you the generalizing behavior. For example, the issue of kufr al-ni'mah, of not being grateful. That's what it really stems from. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran is, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you thank, Allah will give you more. So we have to train ourselves and train our women and our wives and our children the issue of gratitude. So for example, what I do is, with my family, I mention these verses obviously and these kind of things, but we also have a game where we sit down, the kids are there and everyone. I say, let's see who can write down the things that you're grateful for. And let's see, whoever writes down the most wins. Or we'll do rapid fire, and whoever doesn't mention something will lose, will get kicked out. And you're surprised because my young children are so innocent and pure. They'll mention things which are, subhanAllah, like that I wouldn't even think about, because they think about things which we would consider to be taken for granted. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تَحْصُوهَا. If you keep وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ. He gave you from everything you asked, and if you counted the ni'am of Allah, the blessings of Allah, you will not be able to enumerate them. So this idea of trying it, sitting down on a daily basis and making it a habit in the family, in the Muslim family home, where everyone is sitting down, making tasbih, for example, alhamdulillah, thinking about the ni'am of Allah, it has to be a staple part of the Muslim spiritual nutritional diet. Because the reason why entitlement comes is because of two things: kibr and kufr ni'mah. Kibr, arrogance. I'm better than this situation. I deserve more. Basically, I said to one person before, they said, "I deserve more." I said, "Okay, well, like, what do you mean by I deserve more?" I said, "Do you mean it in a cosmological sense, or do you mean it in a shari sense?" And they said, "I deserve more." I said, "If I went to a hospital with you, and you saw a blind child with no limbs, what would you say? And would you say they deserve more or not? Like, Allah gives you exactly what you deserve in one sense, but then He recompensates you in another sense. So this idea of deserving more, we have to try and think about this properly, because this is the root of the problem is actually a psycho-spiritual problem. Is adamu shukr. It's the lack of shukr, because we don't have a culture of shukr enough. We have a culture of entitlement. We have a culture of ingratitude. So if we transform the culture for men, women, and children, and we say, look, let's have a culture now of let's be grateful, and I will say brazenly, especially for women, because the Prophet ﷺ gave us a special advice for the wife. يَكْفُرْنَ الْعَشِيرِ. You have a tendency to it. Now you might say this is actually very misogynistic. We say now, like, even one thing about Jordan Peterson, which is good, is that he brought this a big 5 personality traits and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that one thing which unites women, or which is a more cross-cultural, and I saw some peer-reviewed studies on it as well, and which is known, is that women are more likely to have trait neuroticism. This idea of thinking things are bad, or having feelings of unpleasant feelings of anxiety and these kind of things. And trait neuroticism and ingratitude are inextricably linked, because you can't be neurotic and optimistic at the same time. Someone who is neurotic is lacking in the optimistic, grateful, demeanor. And so if we are able to reduce psychological neuroticism, which is more prominent and more clear as per the psychological studies that we have on the Big 5, for example, and increase gratitude and increase or humbleness. Whoever humbles himself to Allah, Allah raises them. Then I think that this is actually the solution to like one of the spiritual solutions to the marriage crisis. That people need to just be grateful for what they have. And if you are given something, if someone comes to you as an opportunity, as a man, a good man, and he comes to a woman and says, listen, I don't have that much money, or I make a reasonable amount, I try my best. However, I believe in this. I'm a principled man. This guy is for you to turn him down because you don't want to settle with him. You will feel you will feel the pain of that in 3 years' time, when now, quite frankly, you're not as you used to be, and you're still searching, and you'll regret that. Well, I think a woman will regret the fact that she shouldn't go with this guy, and now he's with another woman walking the street with a baby in a pram, walking happily ever after. She'll be very regretful of that, because of that kibble that she had, or that entitlement and so on. It's something which you need to stamp out.
Yeah, I think very beautifully said about the importance of shukr and how we really need this spiritual value in our life. I think that also there are certain kinds of structural features of Islam that generate shukr, or put you in a position of dependence where you can be more thankful and you can be more dependent, especially as a woman. So one of the things that I advocate, for example, in my dawah is that it's better if you don't need to work. Women should not work. Women should, remain in the home as much as you can. قَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنْ. And this is going to create a dependence, because you have to be thankful as a woman. Islam creates that necessity that you have on your husband, and that necessity that you have for your husband to provide for you and protect you, that will generate naturally, psychologically, feelings of shukr, feelings of gratitude to Allah, to your husband, and that just strengthens the marital bond, so you're less likely to leave. Whereas if you are, making your own money, sometimes women are making more than their husbands increasingly because of whatever pro-women hiring policies and promotion policies in the workplace nowadays. They're making more than their husband. So what, as you said earlier, what value am I getting from this man in my life? I'm better without him, or I can do better. Whereas that situation can be entirely avoided, and marriages can be stronger, families can be stronger, if we just had a policy, or we just taught this value that, don't encourage your daughters to go work. Don't encourage your daughters to go become these high-powered working women who can then, because it's ultimately better for the community, of course, because you have more stronger marriages and families, but it's also better for the women themselves, because what is ultimately going to bring more happiness in a purely dunya sense, but also in terms of akhirah, having a strong, happy marriage, raising children, raising strong believers, or, being a, successful PhD businesswoman or corporate executive. Which one ultimately is going to have more value for the woman herself, let alone for the community or for the ummah?
I think that's exactly right. And at the end of the day, that last point you mentioned, I think is I've been experimenting with that angle of it, which is that to let women know that actually this is in their own best interest. And I think that's a really good way of putting it, because at the end of the day, all the studies that we've had, and I've done a lecture on this in Belgium, which is on the Sapiens YouTube channel, like where I say that how feminism has harmed women by telling them that if you get this stuff, if you do this, live this life, will make you more happy. But all of the studies that we've seen have shown categorically that women, because of these changes, or after these changes have been made, have shown to be more psychologically fatigued. They have nervous breakdowns. They have lower life satisfaction. The biggest study, Blanche, Flower, and Oswald, for example, which was done over tens of years, concluded that. And so, at the end of the day, there's a reason, and this is, I think, one really good part of your da'wah, where you show that the rules of Islam not only benefit the individual, but they benefit the family, the society, and the whole unit. And so it's amazing how when people go away from that and they experiment with everything else, it really destroys their life. The studies that we have on LGBTQ families and two families, two men from the same family, two women from the same family, and a child, all of that shows categorically that it's more disadvantageous for everybody.